Welcome inside Detroit Lions Live here at the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine alongside DetroitLions.com writer Tim Twentyman. I'm Dannie Rogers. We are breaking down day one almost at the media podium, to say the least. Workouts.
It's a busy week.
Begin. So busy. Workouts will begin at Lucas Oil here coming up soon today. So we are going to get into defensive linemen and linebackers soon. We have to start
first
with trivia.
Oh,
Because you're a nerd, Tim, so I know you enjoy this.
I do like trivia.
Here's the question. Which one of the Detroit Lions' current coaches also served as a mentor coach on the field in Lucas Oil for the Combine previously?
As a mentor coach?
Yes. So you got club position coaches down there helping coach up guys.
Okay.
Some are kind of there just for support.
Right.
And someone on Detroit's current staff had that role here at the Combine before.
Do I guess now, or do you come back to me?
You may guess. I don't think you'll get it right because I'll let you guess. I'm sorry.
Mark Brunell.
Okay, we're going to do another trivia at the end of the show. That could have been right. We'll do one here midway. Great job, Tim. Great
Was it
job.
right?
That was right.
Did you tell me not to say it?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can say it. I'm going to do another trivia here soon. Okay, we got good ones. First off, Brad Holmes.
I'm pretty impressed with myself if that was right. Just saying. Okay, continue.
General Manager Brad Holmes, head coach Dan Campbell spoke with the media prior to on-field workouts at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's the first time we've really been able to hear from the both of them together here in the offseason before the draft. Take a listen.
We have a culture in place that people can thrive in, and that culture starts at the very top with Sheila. I believe that we're heading in the right direction, but we obviously still have a lot more work to do. That work has long since started. But again, our approach remains the same. Now we're here at the Combine. Hopefully we get some good information coming out of this week with free agency fast approaching. Yeah, our strategy has always been, we're going to pick the best football player that fits us. And we always took in that approach. That approach has worked so far. I guess you could say, is that the best player available for us? But we're always going to get guys that fit our culture. We talk about finding the right guys, drafting the right guys. Same approach with free agency. I feel like last year we kind of left training camp kind of sliding into home plate, trying to, fill that backup quarterback role. And that's on me. I got to do a better job of making sure that we're not in that position again. So that is something that we're going to need to address, whether it's here in free agency or upcoming in the draft. But that's something that we've had a lot of conversations about. But I got to do a better job of making sure we get that rectified. We have Jamal, as an as an unrestricted free agent. And, we're having discussions now currently. We had discussions with all of our upcoming UFAs that were on expiring deals, but there's a mutual interest to hopefully get him back, and then we still got Swift under contract. Biggest goal, really just not to take a step back, just making sure that we're taking a step forward. That's really the biggest one. I think that we ended the season with a lot of momentum. And again, like I said earlier at the beginning of this, I think we're heading in the right direction. So again, this is going to be a big off season. Never like to put too much pressure on myself, but I think we just remain confident in our process, which we've done and which has worked so far. And just make sure that we're still keeping that momentum going, which I think I feel very confident that we will be doing.
I would say we're not afraid to acquire talent, even if we feel like we have a couple of people already in that position. If it's there is such a thing as talent that's hard to pass up, even though we may have a surplus of those players. So, but we understand we have needs, no different than anybody else does. But no, I would say Brad and myself, we're looking for guys that upgrade us, no matter what they are. And if they can play, we'll find a way to play them. We'll put all of them out there some way, form, or fashion. I don't know how many guys we've met with at this point over these 2 to 3 days. Let's call it 30 guys, 35 guys, and I've checkmarked 4 guys. And to me, they got the it factor. Just when you sit in there and you hear them talk about football, it's there's a fire burning in them, and they can't sit in their seat. They got to get up to talk. They got to tell you what's going on. This is how I think. This is what I'm, and that you can't fake that. You know, when you have that, you love ball, and you'll eat and breathe it, do anything for it, do anything for your teammates. You're uber competitive. You watch the guys that, you know, you present them this mini install before they get to the tape, and taking notes, asking questions, and then, man, when you go, they throw the sheet down. Because to them, it's a competition. Like, I'm about to show you how good I can do this. I'm about to show you what I can retain. I'm going to show you that I understand what you're wanting me to do. And those guys are rare. You can find those guys, and they've got some ability, which most guys here do. It's hard not to like them. We want to get more athletic, and we need to get smarter. And some of that's just because we're young. We're going to continue to grow just by, you know, the nature of our young guys developing and learning football. And, you know, Hutch is going to only be another year smarter, and he's got pretty high FBI. But Mac's only going to get a little bit better. Kirby's only going to get a little bit better. But at the same time, these players we acquire, man, they need to have some FBI to them. You know, they need to love it and have some FBI. And that's not always, well, man, they can tell you exactly what to do, but they have an instinct about them too. Some of them can't really tell you, but they're always in the right place. You know, this is a fun time of year, no matter where you're at, from free agency to, you know, to the draft. And because it's not just about acquiring the most talented players. They got to fit your locker room too. They got to fit your locker room. They got to fit a certain need. Coaches, they got to mess with the coaches. And so that's pretty fun, man. We both kind of came away and said, all right, here we go. We're going to year 3. Yeah, we've got a little bit more to play with. We have a little more wiggle room. But it's like, man, let's not lose sight of, let's just get better. Like, forget, well, man, can we acquire that? Let's just worry about, let's find a guy that can serve a certain type of role for us. You know, he's somebody maybe played some ball. He can start at a certain position for us, but we don't need to acquire these, you know, man, these high-level blue. You're paying the most for these guys because they're rated the #1 guy in free agency at that position. We just need to get better. Let's just get better in an area that we need to get better at, and focus on that. And you know, I think that's always been the focus.
Tim, something that stuck out to me about, first off, General Manager Brad Holmes, and what he had to say was they got the first barrier down was getting to know if players wanted to come to Detroit.
Yeah.
He said, that's not the case anymore. Players want to be here. Now it's us selecting the best football players for this organization. What stood out to you from Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell?
Well, it kind of goes along those same lines, too, is when you talk about the right guys that fit. I thought Dan Campbell told an interesting story about, you know, them meeting with like 30 to 35 guys so far, and he uses that word FBI. It's football intelligence. I don't know why it's got 3 letters to it, but hey, that's Dan Campbell's.
Or you don't understand it.
But that's a word he uses often, is football intelligence. And he said of those 30, 35 guys, there have been 4 guys that he's marked down that have, like, had it. Guys that were, like, all about ball, excited, culture, got up off their seat when going through the board and the film and talking that kind of stuff. So, you know, I thought that was interesting that, you know, they're looking for those kind of guys. And it says a lot about the type of guys that they'll want to bring in. It's not just about talent, but it's about some of those other intangibles that Brad and Dan think are important as well.
Do you think the Lions winning 9 games this season as opposed to just 3 the season before kind of plays into how selective Coach Campbell might be with those FBI players?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing that Brad said that kind of stood out to me is when asked about free agency, he said, we've got to move forward. Like, we have to keep going forward.
No
That doesn't
steps
mean
back.
we're going to spend $20 million on the best free agent at his position or whatever, but we have to continue to take steps forward. We can't afford to take a step back, because if you do, then all that stuff that you talked about with building up that rapport with guys wanting to come here and stuff like that, you take a step back, and I think you undo some of that stuff. So continue to take a step forward, get the right guys. You don't have to spend the bank to get it. You know, you can be selective with some guys. Just get guys that you think will make you better at certain positions and continue to make that step forward.
Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell had a chance to hear from defensive linemen and linebackers at the Combine here
You might be
so
interested in
far.
a couple of those guys.
You had Lions draft number 2 overall, Aiden Hutchinson there on the defensive line, edge rusher last year. You had Malcolm Rodriguez as linebacker. You still think they can add to those areas?
I think you can never not have enough pass rushers.
Okay.
you just can't, especially good young ones. It's one of those positions, to me at least, that if you can roll 3, 4, 5 of those guys in and rotate and you don't lose anything, and you can just keep coming at an offensive line, I mean, to me, offensive line, defensive line, you can never have enough good guys in those spots.
All right, defensive line, linebackers had the chance to meet the media for the first time today in Indy. Let's hear what they had to say.
At the end of the day, the eye on the sky don't lie, so they can turn on the tape and see how passionate I am about football, chasing the ball carried down, even when it's not my play to make. And also just they can hear it in my tone that, I'm passionate about this game.
Well, first, I got to go in there and prove myself to the team. I can't be a leader right out the gate, You got to prove yourself to the players, then the coaches, and then, hopefully I can be that leader one day in somebody's program and just know that I'm player-led and I'm self-driven. You're not going to have to tell me to go. I promise you. I'm going to just go naturally on my own. I wake up out of bed, juiced up. I'm ready. I'm just excited. Man, we play the best game in the world. I tell people, man, don't ever get down on yourself. This is an amazing game.
I watch a little bit of everybody, honestly. I take a few pieces from, TJ Watt, JJ Watt, Von Miller, Khalil Mack, a little bit of everybody. But about to say, TJ Watt, we're two different types of pass rushers. He's a more smaller, slender pass rusher. I'm a bigger guy. I like to start off with power. I'll say that much, and that's why I model my game after Myles Garrett.
Yeah, well, playing on our side of the conference in the Big Ten West, we had a lot of run games, so you had to love the run, and it was one of the favorite parts of the game for me, getting a line up from the guy across from you, coming out of your hips and blowing them up and setting the edge like you mentioned. It's definitely one of my favorite parts of the game.
All these guys are great, very athletic, can pass rush. I'm super excited. All the work has been good, but I feel like what I bring to the table, just consistency, being humble, whatever culture I'm in, I'm going to do things the right way, and I think that's what sets me apart. It's about what you have in here, and that's what's carried me to this point of my life. Always knowing that whatever I got going on, my mentality, my mindset, is not going to change, and that's what I approach during a week of practice, and that's what I approach in the game.
Yeah, I think my mentality is great finishing the play. My playing style is based on a lot of effort. So sideline to sideline plays, chasing stuff down, pursuit, constant strain to the ball is a lot of things that I take pride in.
You're getting a chill guy, smart, chill guy, but somebody who loves football. I'm not a big go out, standing out kind of guy, but I know my football, and I'm instinctive throughout the film that you watch. So definitely one of those guys that they're like, damn, that guy knows how to watch some ball and talk some ball.
I would say that being at the academy prepared me for a lot of things. The biggest thing for me is the ability to manage a lot of things at once. I would say being at the academy, you got to manage academics, football, and then also your military responsibilities. So that's something I'll take with me to the NFL when I'm a field artillery officer in the Army, and then for the rest of my life, it's something that I'll use.
I feel like the biggest adjustment is just going to be, I feel like it's going to start with me. It's going to start in my own head. I feel like just knowing that I have the right to be out here and just continue to play with that confidence that I had in college. Obviously, a lot of guys just talk about the speed. The skill is going to be different. But at the same time, it's just the game of football, and you just got to go out there and always believe in yourself. So I would say that. And then obviously, I'm going to have to learn a new scheme. So that's going to be a little bit of a difference than what I came from. So.
That I'm versatile and I'm a great teammate. That's really the most important thing, being a great teammate and somebody in the locker room that they can trust on and off the field. So I know that's what I bring and that's my character. So just continue to be myself and I'll be great.
The biggest thing for me was just continue to build on what I've already shown on tape and really just putting it out there in front of those guys. So really being stout in my run defense, the biggest thing for me, and then my ability just to go out and, be powerful in my pass rush, not be very passive, be aggressive, and just really show what I can do. But I definitely learned a lot off the field when it comes to the terminology, the scheme, really trying to learn that defense and, really get ahead on the NFL side of the ball.
If I would get to play with my brother, it would be truly a blessing. I mean, you've never heard really two brothers on the same team at once, but yeah, it would be a blessing. I played a little bit of running back, fullback. I did play QB my sophomore year in high school. A little slot receiver. I think I got better hands than Panay. I'm a hard worker no matter what. Day in and day out, you're going to get a hard worker, and I promise I'll do my best to help you win games.
Yeah, I would just say me lasting, I want to play for at least 5-7 years, somewhere in there. So just being coachable, seeing myself still develop skills that I know that I have deep down and try to really figure out how my ceiling is. I haven't figured that out yet. So just taking on information from the vets, taking on information from the people who's been there before. I just really want to see how long I can go with this thing.
Tim, Detroit Lions have 2 picks in the first round, 2 in the second, remind you, but 6 and 18 there in the first round. They certainly can use that stock on some defensive guys. Remember, they drafted 6 out of 8 players last year on the defensive side of the ball. We're starting with defense here today.
And 5 of those 6 guys were impactful players, too.
Exactly.
That are going to be big parts of this team, too. So the cupboard's not as bare as people might think on defense, though they do need help.
Yes, they do need help. And someone who could help them potentially up there along the defensive line, Will Anderson out of Alabama. His stats are staggering over the last 2 seasons. You're shaking your head right now,
Production.
Tim. 152 tackles, 27.5 sacks, 48 TFLs. This man gets to the ball. How does he do it?
Well, that one was a little easy, the highlight there. You might want to put a body on him, block him. That's job number 1. But you look at him, to me, he's the full package. I think he's a guy that can put his hand in the dirt. He's a guy that can stand up. You can move him on either side. You mentioned the production. He's just a guy that's really gifted as a pass rusher. Just all those little intangibles, the bend, right? Being able to play in space. Look at the athleticism on that interception. And hey, big men running with the football. I love it. And so, to me, I think he's one of the elite pass rushers in a class, to me, that is one of the better pass rushing classes in a few years that we've seen. I mean, there are guys we're going to get into well into day 2 that are going to be guys that can come in and contribute and start right away. But when you talk about Will Anderson, this guy, look at that bend off the side. Just some of those things that we talked about with James Houston, but now you're talking about a guy who's got the size to go with it too, right? So he can put his hand in the dirt and do all those things. I think he's just really versatile. He's working with the linebackers here, so that tells you a little bit about his versatility, being able to stand up, being able to put his hand in the dirt, being able to move him around a lot like the Lions do with Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's a very similar player.
If you can get a James Houston in the first round, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
in my
with
opinion.
size.
Right? Where does Tyree Wilson, coming out of Texas Tech, stack up with Will Anderson? Does he give him a run for his money in that first round?
Well, he looks down on Will Anderson a little bit because he's 6'6", 275 pounds, and he was on the podium on
Show
Wednesday.
us your wingspan, Tim.
Yeah, he was on the podium. It's not 86 inches.
What is your guess? What's your wingspan?
My wingspan?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Okay.
Not 86.
I won't make you do that to yourself.
Yeah, it's not good enough to play in the league. Let's put it that way. But to me, that's the big difference between the two. And look, Daniel Jeremiah, who does a great job, who's well respected in the NFL media world. He did a conference call last week, and he said, "Look, there are some teams that view Tyree Wilson as the first defensive end off the board, a guy higher on their board.
In the number 1 spot, potentially?
Than Will Anderson Jr. I don't know if it's going to get that far. Now, he's not going to do anything down here, but you see from the clips right there, just some of the raw athleticism and the size and the bull rush and being able to play in space, and he's got an elite motor. But to me, that's the intangibles of 6'6", 275, 86-inch wingspan, and then he's going to probably go run on his pro day in the 4.5 range. Now, he's not going to do anything down here because he's dealing with a foot injury that he suffered at the end of last year. His pro day is going to be March 29, and I tell you what, he's going to kill it. I mean, it's going to be must-watch TV. You just look at the size from him, and you can just tell from the highlights here the size difference between him and Will Anderson. He's more power than I think Will Anderson is, but he's got some quickness and some skills and a strong first step. And look, when he gets his hand on the quarterback, as you can see from these highlights, he goes down. And so, to me, I think it'll be really interesting over the next couple months how teams view Will Anderson Jr. versus Tyree Wilson, because I think those two guys are clearly the top 2 guys from the edge rusher position.
Is this like a Kayvon, Aiden
argument
again?
I think that's
they started separating themselves when draft got closer, but for a minute there, they were really
It was really close, yeah. And names escaping me, though, the number 1 pick from Jacksonville, I think, got into that mix late because of some of the stuff that you see with Tyree Wilson, right? Yeah. The size, speed, the versatility combination. So I think, he's going to be talked about in that same light as a guy who's going to move up boards and be considered one of those guys right there with Will Anderson Jr. as one of the best pass rushers in this draft.
There's a couple of other top pass rushers. We have to break this one down. Iowa's Lucas Van Ness.
Yes.
Crazy stat nugget that came up today. He's never started a football game.
Never. But if you look at his snap count, and that's just how Iowa does it.
He's got the experience, just not the starting experience.
Yeah, he had 2 fifth-year seniors ahead of him.
Okay.
So that's just kind of how Iowa works. You know, they respect those guys. But if you look at the snap production, it was pretty similar. And he played starter caliber snaps.
Yes, 6 sacks last season.
Yeah, 6 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss. Really a power guy. And we talked about versatility. And a lot of those defensive linemen that I talked to on Wednesday said, that's the biggest thing about this class overall is it's got a lot of guys that offer a lot of versatility. You look at Van Ness as a great example. He was a defensive tackle in 2021. He played defensive end in 2022. So now you're talking about a guy, you know, at 6'5", 270 pounds. He's going to be right around 275, he thinks, but a guy that played inside, can play outside, versatility, production, can do both in the NFL. And like when you can start to do some of those things and teams can move you around, you can play multiple spots, that's where your value really starts to tick up in this pre-draft process, because teams want guys that can do a lot of different things. Look at a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, right? Can stand up, play out of the 2-point, can put his hand in the dirt, can drop in coverage with the 3 interceptions, right? You can do a lot of stuff, and you can do some scheme stuff with guys like that. And I think Van Ness is a similar guy. Plus, I love the fact that he played hockey in high school.
Yeah.
Not many football players play hockey.
Kiddo. Yeah.
I talked to him. He said he probably led his league in penalty minutes, which does not surprise me. Does not surprise me that a football player, defensive end, led his league in high school hockey in penalty minutes. Can you imagine that guy rolling around,
like
6'5" goon on the ice?
Yeah. Tim, I know you love production, so I want to mention Georgia Tech's Keon White.
Yeah.
54 tackles, 7.5 sacks last season.
Yeah.
Is his name going to possibly come up here?
Yeah, I think he's a first-round guy. Late first round. I don't see him moving to the second round just because teams value pass rushers so much.
Yeah.
And he was a guy that I thought had a really good Senior Bowl. I was down there in Mobile, and he was one of those guys that stood out to me. So I always love that week of watching some of these guys. You're not going to see the Will Anderson Jr.'s. You're not going to see the Tyree Wilsons at the combine, but being able to see some of these guys that are going to be late first round, maybe second round, but I think with Keon, it's going to be a late first round, mid first round guy, and actually doing stuff and playing football. I like it because I get a better idea of what these guys are like. Good first step, strong, good bull rush. I think he's got a lot of tools.
Moving inside to those defensive tackles, we're going to mention off the bat Georgia's Jalen Carter, who had a phenomenal 2022 season. However, off the field,
probably the best player in this draft.
Yeah,
pound for pound.
He's dealing with stuff. He's now been charged with 2 misdemeanors this week. He was involved in an accident in the offseason. A former teammate and a staffer had passed away in that accident. So he's dealing with some off the field kind of things. Does that impact his draft stock?
Well, the arrest warrant, obviously, NFL teams don't want to see that, and so to me, I think the biggest thing is, he was meeting with some teams Monday and Tuesday probably, but we were all standing in front of the podium waiting for him to talk. It was 18 minutes before he was set to talk at 10:30 Wednesday morning that this news broke. And so what had he told teams on Monday and Tuesday when he had sat with them?
Did he get ahead of it
or did he lie to them? Was he not as
very
truthful? And then it
telling.
comes out, boom. So, I think teams are obviously going to take a close look at the off the field stuff, because on the field, look, we both watched him, we both saw him. He was a dominant defensive tackle. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah said he had a higher grade on Carter than he did Quinnen Williams coming out a few years ago.
Yeah,
and
92.7 PFF grade.
And so just power, quickness. I mean, you look at some of the production and just the skill set he had. He was a terror. You couldn't run in the middle. He was the catalyst really behind that Georgia defense. It all started right there. You didn't run on Georgia. I think it was 77 yards per game teams ran. And a big reason why is because right there, and you see it against the run, he just takes on 2 blockers. If you try to block him with a single blocker, I mean, good luck. He's just too strong, too powerful, too quick of feet. So he's a guy that clogs up the middle, allows guys like an Aiden Hutchinson, a James Houston, Will Anderson Jr., if you get a guy like that, or a Tyree Wilson. It just allows them to have more freedom on the outside because you're so focused on him in the interior. Because the worst pass rush you can get as a quarterback, that pass rush right up the middle, right? And that's what a guy like Carter provides. But now with this news, it's 2 misdemeanors. We'll just have to see, what the off-the-field ramifications of this are. But teams are certainly going to have to do their homework on him now.
A horrible situation to be in for everyone involved. Moving on to Clemson, Ryan Brzee, who you're saying You were just talking about Carter, who's in the middle creating havoc. This guy is going to be able to get his hands up in the passing lane. 2 passes defended, production all over the place, 3 sacks, 15 tackles, and 5.5 TFLs for loss. We're going to keep hearing about Brazee here in the draft.
Former number 1 overall prospect coming out of high school. And really, I think the medicals are going to be the key thing with him. Had an ACL, had a kidney infection, and missed some time with some injuries. But again, we talked about with the pass rushers, right? Versatility, right? Being able to play inside, outside, play over the nose tackle, the 0 tech, all the way out to the 9. I mean, he's a guy to me that can play 0 to 5 anywhere. He's just a real athletic kind of guy, but to me, it's the medicals with him. How's his health? He said on Wednesday he was feeling great. It's the best he's felt. He's ready to go. He's going to do everything here, and he's going to kill it. So we'll have to see. But I think ultimately the medical is going to be the important one for the teams, especially if you're picking as high as number 6 and he's still on the board.
Emphasizing the Big Ten guys in this draft. Who are you looking for defensive tackle-wise that could make a splash here?
Yeah, a few of them. Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. I thought he really stood out. He made my list of one of the top 10 players at the Senior Bowl. He was unblockable at times. I think he really had a good week there, and he's another guy that I think with a good week here and some good testing can really jump up some boards. You look at some of the production there, the 36 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He was really, really good there. Mozzie Smith is an interesting one for me out of Michigan. Again, some off-the-field issues that teams will have to navigate through and figure out and make sure everything's squared up there. But look, number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. Now, it doesn't match the production per se, but just when you go to the NFL and teams see the size, athleticism, combo with a guy like Mozzie, they can be like, okay, I think we can work with something here. We can do something. So he's another guy. And then another interesting one, not a Big Ten guy, but Kalaja Cansey, Pittsburgh.
What a name.
I know, right?
Cansey.
Size is going to be his biggest issue. He's only 6 foot tall, but when you turn on the tape of him and you see that first step.
Doesn't play like it?
No, he doesn't play like it. But, what's he going to measure here? And then what are going to be some of the explosive traits? The quickness with the 3-cone, but the vert and some of those that aren't important for big guys, but they measure that explosion. I think he's going to do really well in those, and that'll be important for him.
Okay, moving on to those linebackers. We know Malcolm Rodriguez needs a buddy. You've got Alex Anzalone, who's an unrestricted free agent.
Yep.
We're not sure what's going to happen with that.
I think Derek Barnes, he's got a buddy in Derek. But they need more. They need more depth and talent at that position.
Yes, Derek really got off the ground here this past season. But can they keep adding to that linebacker position? You look at. I want to first go off of Jack Campbell of Iowa. The 125 tackles. He's one of the highest graded linebackers in this draft, 91.5 according to PFF. What is Campbell bringing to the field that Detroit might love?
Old school.
Ooh.
Old school.
Sure
I could mistake Jack Campbell for Dan Campbell when you watch him on tape, which is some of the things. Just some of the things that you see with him.
Is he related? Did we check on
the size.
this yet?
I think there is no family relation.
Okay.
But when you watch the film and see some of the similar things in terms of size, toughness, want, right, grit, never quit. Those are things that Jack Campbell does to me. This is the one part I like to see because this is where the NFL game is going, right? You have to be able to drop and cover as a linebacker. It's just one of those things you've got to be able to do. Turn the football over like did right there against Michigan. Those are obviously pluses, but these are some of the things I like, right? Being able in the right spot and tip balls. You mentioned the production with the tackles and everything else, but to me with him, it's just I think you like the experience, you like the size at 6'4", 248, and you like the production. So he brings the whole gamut of skill sets. To me, I think the important part this week for him is going to be those in space against coverage. He's got the size. You know he can be productive in the run game. Can he do some of those things you're seeing right there and continue to be really, really productive in the pass game? I think if teams think that he can be a guy that can be a 3-down back that can play on 3rd down and be a guy that's really good in coverage, I think you'll see him shoot up boards.
A linebacker, I'm sure the likes of Frank Ragnow, Dan Skipper will not mind bringing into this team is Arkansas Razorback Drew Sanders.
Yeah.
He's right there behind Jack Campbell. Tremendous production, over 100 tackles, a 77.9 PFF grade. What are you seeing from him on field? Again,
it's some of the same things with Jack. Look at that hit. First off, that's a hit you remember as a running back. You're going to run through that hole, and you're going to see him. You're going to see 42, and you're going to know. again, right there, some of the things you want to see with
Ball
the way
instincts,
this
yep.
game is going is ball instincts and being able to play in space. Look at that. Just see it and attack and just get it and turn the football over, right? And again, it's good size with him too. 6'5", 232. The 40 time's going to be important with him. You look at that play right there. It shows he can kind of go sideline to sideline. But when you're that big and you've got some of the production, the 13.5 tackles for loss and the tackle numbers that you mentioned, if you've got speed to go with it, that's where the NFL is going at linebacker. And so to me, the 40 time is going to be really huge for him. He runs a fast 40. He's got a chance to be the first linebacker off the board, one of the top ones.
I certainly do not want to leave out. This is maybe a favorite for us. Noah Sewell, linebacker out of Oregon. Yes, he is Penei Sewell's younger brother. His name is coming up here in the draft. 56 tackles last season, a 71.4 PFF grade. Is there a chance we see two Sewells on the field at one time?
There's a chance.
Okay.
When I look at Noah, to me, he's a throwback linebacker to me. I mean, the size, obviously, he's at 250. He's big. He's a two-down linebacker to me. You know, when he was asked who his favorite guys were growing up, the guys he studied, he said Ray Lewis and Junior Seau.
Some throwback dudes.
Big, physical, take care of the run. Like, that's the kind of linebacker they are, and that's what I think Noah is. Again, like we talked about with the other guys, but especially with Noah, in my opinion, it's going to be the in space, the quickness drills, the ball the ball drills, and those kind of things that are going to be really important to him. I see him right now as kind of a day two guy, late day two guy. We did ask him about Penei a little bit. Yeah.
What did he say?
He said it would be a dream, obviously, to be drafted by Detroit, play with his brother. They obviously are on two different sides of the football.
It's
So
happened
he said,
to the Okwaras. It
he
can
said
happen.
I could beat Penei one-on-one on a few times, and got a few chuckles because Penei obviously is one of the best right tackles. But I love the confidence from the young guy, from the younger brother who had to deal with Penei and his older brothers picking on him his whole life. But he did say, as a former quarterback when he was a sophomore in high school and a slot receiver, bar none, his hands are better than Penei. I believe him. Penei's got good hands.
Yeah.
The Friday throws with the linemen are must-see at practice.
They're my favorite.
They're great.
You see them, you're like, Lions going to do that?
Yeah. One other linebacker I want to mention real quick, though, too,
Let's hear
is
it.
Trenton Simpson.
Yep, Clemson guy.
Impressive young man. Watch the 40 with him. He says he's going to run in the 4.4s.
He said, how do you like when they declare that?
I love that.
Okay.
There's confidence about that young man.
He's
but
got
his
to do
dad,
it, though.
his dad was an Army Ranger in the military for 26 years, 17 deployments.
Oh my
He graduated from Clemson in 3 years. I mean, he is an impressive young man, and he is going to be able to run. And that's
look at
where
that bow tie in his profile picture.
You love that. But that's where this is going to go with him. Is teams are going to see his size speed combination, and they're going to be like, okay, he can do a lot of different things, especially that in the pass game. I think that's going to be the big thing. But you can put him as a box safety. You can put him in the slot, maybe against big tight ends.
Wow.
With that size, you can do a lot of different things with a guy his size at 4.4 speed. And so he's another interesting one that he might be my favorite linebacker of all of them.
Okay, just because I'm kind of like, how is this draft going to go for the Detroit Lions, especially in the first round? So I'm going to put you on the spot,
Okay.
Tim.
Let's
Who do
do
you
it.
think Detroit, let's pretend trading back does not exist in the NFL draft. Who do you think Lions would take?
This is what I would do.
6 and 18, yes,
I'm
go.
Brad Holmes.
Okay.
I take the best defensive player available at number 6.
Linebackers,
Whoever
DB.
is on my board as the
Defensive
top
line.
defensive player
Okay.
at 6, that's who I
Who's
take.
that for you?
Tyree Wilson could be in the mix.
Okay.
I think one of those cornerbacks, once the evaluations come, the kid Gonzalez from Oregon, one of those guys, whoever that is. And look, if there's a run on quarterbacks at the top, and you get 3-4 quarterbacks, you could have your pick of Jalen Carter,
They can
Will
have their
Anderson
pick.
Jr., or
Yes.
Tyree Wilson could be one of those guys that's sitting there. So to me, it's just whoever is the number one guy on my board on defense, that's an area that we need, that's the guy. At 18, it's the best player on my board.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be offense, defense. It's any position. I think you address the position of need on defense with the best player there on your board. And then at 18, whether that's a running back, whether that's a cornerback, if you've taken a defensive lineman first, if that's a guard, Osiris Torrance from Florida, whoever that is. You could have an
I don't
opening
hate
at
that.
right guard. They love to build
Yep.
at offensive line. It's defensive tackle. It's one of these linebackers we talked about, Trenton Simpson or Drew Sanders or somebody else. To me, it's just you can't pass. I think it's bad draft policy to reach for a position. You say, okay, I have to get a corner at 18.
Yeah.
When you have an
pigeonhole
offensive
yourself.
player, like whether it's Bijan Robinson or whoever that you have significantly graded above this player, the Detroit Lions are still at a point where they've got to collect good football players. That they've got to build the talent of this football team. They're not in a position to skip on a player who's more talented to grab a position of just filling a need.
Yes.
So to me, it's best defensive player available, whoever that is, and then it's the best player on my board. I trust my process. This is my number one guy at 18. This is who I'm taking.
Okay, we did a bonus trivia earlier. We did a trivia question. You nailed it.
Did I get it right?
It was Mark. I know. Wow, you're a great actor.
That's right.
Mark Brunell served as a mentor to the prospects here at the
I love
Combine
it.
before. We love that. Here's my bonus one,
Oh,
Tim.
no.
I'm going to put
Is
you on
this
the spot.
harder?
Yes, because it's got numbers in it.
Okay.
When
Oh.
did the Combine move to Indianapolis? What year?
Oh my gosh. I've been covering football since 2009,
You
so
did
I'm going
that
to throw
to
that
yourself.
at that. I'm
Okay.
throwing that out there. I'm going to
Okay.
say it started here in 1976.
That's not a bad. I'll let the folks ponder on that. I've got one more
I'm not
last
even
question
close.
before we wrap up today. You're not that far off.
Okay.
I'm not giving it away this time.
I will say I wish it stays in Indianapolis for the rest of the NFL. If we
PSA,
can throw that in
NFL,
there.
do not move the Combine.
Don't move it.
Don't
Okay.
move it. To wrap up
Now
here
we've said that.
before
Okay.
I give away trivia, what are the biggest needs for Detroit? Let's pretend. Let's 1, 2 biggest needs. We're
Yeah.
not taking into account draft order.
Sure.
Who's on that board?
For me, cornerback's number one.
Okay.
You've obviously got Jeff Okudah coming back. You like where Jerry Jacobs is trending. I think
Yep.
he's trended up for the first 2 years of his career. I think he's got some versatility potential to maybe move inside. But to me, you've got those two guys, and then a lot of guys who are unrestricted free agents or guys with question marks. So to me, that's got to be an area where you really address it. And I think they address it in free agency. Wouldn't be surprised if they sign 2 guys in free agency and then draft a guy fairly high and a guy late.
Woo.
Do not be surprised if there are 4 new cornerbacks heading
Oh my
to the offseason this year
gosh.
to join with Jeff Okudah and Jerry Jacobs, because I think that's really
Wow.
a position of need. I'd say defensive tackle is there for me, and I think they've got to add some depth at safety. I know these are all defense, but I think you've got to start to address or look to the future at running back. I think you're going to resign.
yeah.
I think they're going to resign Jamal Williams, which
Bring
we
him
both
back.
love. Yes, and
Bring
I
him
think
back.
Lions fans will love that
Yes.
too. Jamal is 28 years old, and so
He would tell you he don't care about it. He don't care.
look, he's been a backup.
I know.
So he doesn't.
Pristine condition.
He doesn't.
What?
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
He's durable.
Yeah, he's got some tread on those tires.
I know.
Certainly left.
I know.
And coming off 1,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, and that offensive line to go behind.
Yes.
You've got to love that. But I think you've got to address that position at some point. DeAndre Swift is going into the last year of his rookie deal.
Yes.
Don't know what the future is going to
Yep,
be
he's
with
had a lot of
him.
injuries.
Had some
Yep.
injuries. So you got a 28-year-old number one back and a guy going into the last year of his rookie deal. I see that as a need too. But first and foremost, cornerback, defensive tackle, some safety depth, a lot on defense, and then you shift over to the offense. That offense is pretty good.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
We like it all. Tim, thank you so much for guiding us through what to keep our eyes on here during the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine. The answer to that trivia question, you said 1976 is
Yeah,
when
I'm
Combine
way
moved. You're not. 1987
Oh,
is
okay.
when everyone started bracing St. Elmo's Steakhouse and burning their nostrils with that shrimp cocktail.
Did you go yet?
Not yet.
No.
I will. I will give myself heartburn here at one point. My last trivia question for you, Tim. Do you know
You've
what
got another trivia question?
Do you know what BLESTO stands for?
BLESTO, the scouting service.
What does the acronym stand for?
I don't know.
Okay.
Give me the B.
Bears.
Oh, heck no. I don't
Okay.
know.
I have the perfect person who does know it. Dakota Duncan, BLESTO scout for the Detroit Lions. I had the chance to catch up with him coming into the Combine to break down that role as scout for the week.
Look at that segue. It's like you're a professional. Yes.
Wink. First off, what the heck does BLESTO mean?
So BLESTO is Bears, Lions, Eagles, Steelers talent organization, and it's a scouting service that teams subscribe to, and we collect a bunch of information on next year's class. So while everyone's here for the 2023 class, I'm already getting a head start on 2024.
You joined the Lions in 2018 as a scouting assistant.
Yep.
So when you were promoted to BLESTO scout, what were you braced for your daily role?
To be honest, I didn't really know a lot about it because Aloy was the guy before me.
Okay.
But I just knew it was long hours in the office. He was always there sleeping in the office, especially around deadline time, like the spring, which is probably the hardest season for us.
There's a couple of, we'll call it subscription services for scouting that NFL teams subscribe to. You've got the National Scouting Services and then BLESTO. And there's only a handful of teams with BLESTO.
Yeah.
What kind of advantage at all does that give the Lions?
What it really helps is in the spring, it makes it easier for the area guys because they're working on the 2023. And since we're working on 2024, it just allows us to go into schools and kind of get a jump start for the area guys. So that's where it's really helpful. We get a bunch of information, kind of like the combine here, where we're doing the height, weight, arm, hand, and then some schools let us run the 40, which gives us another advantage as far as seeing how fast the kids are. So,
okay, you just named a few measurements, drills. In your opinion, which one do you like watching the most, or which one has the most impact on the data that you're putting into the system?
Really the 40.
Okay.
The 40, just because when you're watching tape, if these guys don't run a 40 in the spring, you don't really know how fast they are. You can look at it and be like, all right, this is his play speed. But then once they come out here and run their 40s, that's really where you get to see like these kids can move.
How important is the combine on your guys' list when you're going through this scouting process?
Yeah, so I mean, the really big thing is the fall because you're watching the tape. Like film never lies. So this is just another added bonus for us where we get to come out here. I know as far as like the executives, they get to meet with these kids, talk to them for the first time, sit down and do that interview process. But it's just another thing that allows us to get a deeper dive on who these kids are and where they come from.
What's your favorite part of this process, getting to know these prospects?
Just hearing their backgrounds, just hearing where they come from, why they love football, why they're doing it. That's just, we all, like I grew up, obviously this is what I wanted to do, be here at the combine. I just wasn't blessed athletically, but it's really cool to see these kids come out here and live their childhood dreams.
So when they're done with their workouts here at the combine, what is next on your guys' list?
So once they're here and done here, then we're going to move on. I think pro days start like 2 days. Some of them start right after the combine ends. So it's a quick turnaround. Area guys get on the road and start going to pro days and timing 40s and doing the measurements there too.
So you're not looking at these pro days, you're looking at the next year. Draft already.
So I know like the one right after the combine, it's we'll be there in the morning measuring those guys for next year, and then the area guys will be over the top kind of starting to measure the guys for this year.
So you really are one of the first people to get like a first look at these prospects, right?
Yeah, and it's awesome because kind of more of like an intimate setting where it's a smaller room. It's just me and the NFS scout Kasha with the Colts. So we get to just really see how these kids, body language, they ask good questions. We really get that one-on-one time with them in there too. So
Okay, so you get all your data, you sat down on these interviews. Are you just typing away in a computer all this data? Where does it go?
yeah, so we have a BLESTO as a system, an app that's on our computer that we kind of just take the measurements, enter it in there, sync it up, and then it gets sent out to the 6 other teams that are in BLESTO.
Okay, so all of that information, those teams are privy to, and we talked a little bit about it. How much does that help you, having other teams that are gathering all of this information on hundreds of prospects?
Yeah, it kind of just puts a lot of weight on you, kind of just as far as like, there's 6, 7 other teams depending on you and your information that you gather. So being really detailed, but it's also cool because, you're helping out everyone in the league, so.